I wanted to have my main character become the stranger in the strange land, become the alien, see the world through alien eyes, but still with a human perspective. So he was a human in an alien body trying to integrate into an alien society. And I wanted that idea of trying to learn the other culture. And of course, the first key to that is always language.
What's he saying?
I had done some of that stuff before I ever met with a linguist. I was just basing it on my sort of casual acquaintance with some Polynesian languages, some other languages that had these kind of various, symbols and indicators for pronunciation. So then when I started working with Dr. Paul Frommer, he got excited by that. He said, "What does this apostrophe mean to you?" I said, "Well, it's just the way you pronounce that word." He said, "Okay, let's work with that and we'll incorporate that into it." And then he went miles and miles beyond those initial ideas.
He wanted something that didn't sound like anything that we've ever heard before, but also that sounded like something that was doable in the sense that the actors could master it. He showed me some of the words that he had come up with, and that gave me a sense of the kind of sounds he had in mind. And so at that point, I kind of built from there.
It's
all the lines that were to be spoken in Na'vi first appeared in English, and then it was up to me to turn that into Na'vi. Once I had the elements of the language in place, it was pretty much a translation exercise, except that I didn't have a dictionary. I was one who created the dictionary, so of course I had to create the words as well as put them together into sentences.
When I started the job, I asked if I could meet with Paul, who was writing the language, and he was still in the process of writing it at that point. So every actor that came in, whether they were coming in for human into an avatar or a Na'vi role, all the auditions have them sitting there doing and all this sort of stuff.
Basically what they did was you walk in there, casting director says, "Okay, you're gonna do the audition, but you're not gonna do it in English."
No more son de lector!
I know a lot of people that got pissed and they walked out of there angry.
Tenemos las damas, más que nosotros!
And I just remember, I was speaking gibberish, and I walked out and I was like, nobody's gonna like that. It was awful. I was embarrassed.
Me, ni, mo, mu.
They responded to it, and more than anything, my performance came through.
Neytiri, ¿por qué me desvías delante de nosotros, mater?
Like a month and a half later, I get a call, and they're like, "Jim wants to meet you." I'm like, "Over that?"
You're Jake, right? Tom's brother. Wow, you look just like him.
Sigourney and I had been through an experience early in both our careers that was a huge break for both of us. She got an Academy Award nomination for playing a character in a science fiction movie, which was almost unprecedented.
Get away from her, you bitch!
But that was, 23 years earlier. In a funny way, I'd almost discounted working with Sigourney because we had done Aliens and because it was a science fiction film about an encounter with an alien species. I thought, that might be a little too close to home. But then I thought, idiot. She's perfect for this character. She can do an amazing job with Grace Augustine, and Grace Augustine is not Ripley. I'm changing her name.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't want to do Ripley and Shipley.
All righty.
Let's say it's going to be Grace Augustine.
Frankly, it's thrilling to be working with Jim again, since we did Aliens, but also to be in the first movie he's wanted to do since Titanic, and to see how excited he is about the writing, the shooting, the this, the that, the joy he has of working on this finally. He's quite unique, I think. Really unique.
And I just felt that there was an interesting spin on her being involved in a story in which we are the aliens. The word alien is used in the film. It's used by the Na'vi, speaking of us. So there's an interesting irony there.
It's such a great adventure, and it's also at the same time a great love story. Also very much about big business and their blindness to the destruction they cause.
As we got the actors, it kind of fell into place that we would incorporate the actor into the design, and kind of came up with an idea that it would be great to try to retain the mouth and some of the facial characteristics of that actor so that that actor's performance would come through. And to develop Zoe, who plays Natiri, we actually went to set and put her through a whole battery of photographs. And then on top of the actress's photograph, then we would turn her into a Na'vi.
So we did complete turnarounds, all different angles of the head and neck. And this is the photograph that I used to start this image here. We took this through at least 50, 60 versions.
For each actor, we put them through a life cast process, which we used for our designing purposes when it came to a 3D sculpture. Look at that. It's absolutely fantastic. What an incredible cast, I must say.
No eyebrows in there?
Oh, your eyebrows are right there.
They're still on your head. Which in turn get scanned into computer files, which are sent to Weta, and then they will then work off of this design that we've done and help bring those to life.
It was very important for us to put all of our actors through a training regimen that was specific to their characters.
Everything they say, everything they do, every physical part of their performance is all done by actors. It's captured performance. And this applies to Sam Worthington's character and all the other characters as well that are Na'vi or avatars. How they move, how they breathe, how they stand, everything had to be created by them.
So Sam, we had him learn Na'vi.
Na'vi kete SUV.
We had him work out with a trainer.
Sam had to do military training, and he worked with my brother, and he's a former Marine. He fought in Desert Storm. So we got, some of his Marine Corps buddies, and they took him out, put him through his paces, and that gave him a little bit of the mindset to draw from to play his character.
Nothing that I'm giving you, Sam, is outside of standard combat mode, so join it.
They want you to kind of be proficient with weaponry and stuff like that because the guy's a Marine. So I wanted to actually meet other Marines.
On round 4 times. Go, go, go.
To me, it was more the way these guys see the world and the way that their training has made them think. And nothing can stop them. And it's drilled into them to achieve their mission. You got the man next to you, and if he goes down, you pick him up and you keep going.
Keep going.
Got it, Sam. Let's go.
Keep going, keep going.
Another mag. Waiting on you. Let's go.
That gave me a base to jump from. So that was the best training I had.
Welcome to our world. Hey, fuck it. See, push.
I should just drop here.
Zoe went through a tremendous amount of training, as did Laz and CCH. She went through horseback training, archery training, movement training, dance training, language training.
To say we did a lot of training is an understatement. We actually had to learn how to walk like a Na'vi. We had to learn how to do everything from our core. They only exhibit speed or power when they absolutely have to until they explode. And when they explode, they move like the wind.
They worked with the movement coach, Terry Notary, and Terry came up with certain ways of moving that involved the way the chest and the spine would move to create some kind of animal grace, some power in the step.
We work with each actor as a whole and then separate them and work with them as individuals so that they can first create a base technique. So there's some inspiration coming from different sources. It's not an ape or it's not a cheetah. It's a combination of a bunch of things that the character is inspired by.
Without Terry Notary, we would have a species that would talk a different language, but would walk human and react as humans do.
Terry worked with the complete cast to create a unity of movement and create a believability in this culture that they had grown up together.
There's a connection between the people and their environment. This is part of how they get their strength. This is part of how they survive. This is part of them getting energy. We play around with all of that.
There were some big dance numbers that got cut out of the movie, but her choreography, her movement that she created is still very much a part of the film. When you see all the ceremonial stuff where they're swaying and rocking around and throwing their arms in the air in these very precise time signatures, all of that was created by Lula and by her troupe.
I got a hold of Zoe and we taught her how to run, how to jump on a wire, how to shoot her bow. That was one of the biggest things we had to work with for her, is how to shoot this bow and arrow more different than ever has been done before.
Zoe was the first person we started to teach the bow work to. Zoe's a lefty. So once we established that they were lefties, we said all of them are be lefties. Jim came up with the idea of, this is such a human gesture. Let's just do this. And all of a sudden, it's no longer human feeling. And it also accentuates the idea that the Na'vis only have 3 digits.
It wouldn't work very well for a human, but the Na'vi are subtly different in terms of their biomechanics, and you can see that in their upper body musculature and so on, especially in the males. The archery teacher came to me puzzled, and he says, all right, you're showing the actors one way of doing it, but you're having me teach them proper archery. And I said, well, I want them to respect the power of the bow, and I want them to understand the focus, the breathing, and all those things that you can teach them.
That strength has to project from the core of your body through the bow arm towards the target. And if nothing else, you think of your target as boom. Think of your target as boom.
We had 2 instructors from the Olympic team come to help work with our actors. And we showed them this idea of doing it backwards. And at first they were very skeptical.
And he said, you know, you can't shoot a bow that way. And I said, really? You can't? Come with me. So I got a bow from the prop man, and I got an arrow, and I walked out behind the studio, and I said, you see that bush over there that's about 75 meters away? He said, yes. And I went like that and hit it. And he said, oh, you can shoot a bow that way. Because I'd been out there practicing. And I got lucky with that one shot, but I hit it.
Let's go through the first page of Background Dialogue Part 1. What we've done is we've really worked on it as a company of actors. And what we've been doing in the last couple of weeks is having them speak their way of speaking Na'vi to each other. What we've just been doing is to have Zoe and Lance come up and just do a little bit of the dialogue so that Wes could hear what we've established, so that rhythmically and so on, he can kind of match up, and he's doing great. So that we're artificially creating that melting pot.
It's part of your costume. It's part of who you become. So you want it to become natural and fluid. Well, I'm lucky because the characters only just learns it over the course of the movie. So if I slip up, it helps the character.
Nari. 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 Nari.
Nari. Paul Frommer had created a language. He wasn't creating an accent. So I basically said, Zoe, you get to establish what Na'vi sounds like and what the Na'vi accent sounds like, because you're the one with the most lines. And then everybody else is just going to have to try to match you as best they can.
It's very hard because how do I speak English with an accent? I barely speak English all in itself.
The one who interprets the will of Ewa.
To me, it's been the most challenging thing, is to speak English with a Na'vi accent.
I need your help. You should not be here.
I knew that we were going to be working in this sterile gray space, this volume. And I didn't want the actors to just sort of come in on the first Monday morning of the shoot and not have any kind of basis for feeling like they were in a rainforest. So we went to Kauai, we went way up in the mountains, and we acted out the scenes.
Relax, Maureen. You're making me nervous.
And we just did behaviors, but trying to kind of stay in character and talking as if they're characters. Sigourney fed on this a great deal. I know Sam and Zoe got a lot out of it.
We didn't know what it was going to be like, and Jim took it further. I thought we were just going to be in our regular clothes, you know, hiking, just to get a physical taste of what it's going to be like to live in a planet and not have to rely on anything comfortable. But it was that, but also wearing our costumes. So I was naked for 3 days in Hawaii, up in like the forest, just digging and climbing and muddy, and we're videotaping and we're going through the inside of this jungle.
You're stepping on my tail.
And I saw this headless rat. And I'm with my bow and I'm in character. The moment I saw this rat, I was just like, immediately I went back to like my New York state of mind. I was like, oh my God, I can't deal with this. And he's like, suck it up. Jim was like, come on, Nick Thierry, suck it up. I'm like, right, okay, Zoe, leave. This is jungle, no TV, no BlackBerry. Let me just do this. So it's been a struggle every day to kind of, undo everything that has been done up until my years.
I just absorbed that place. I absorbed the beauty of the rainforest there. And we did a couple of scenes and we ran around in loincloths, you know, pretending we were the Na'vi and the Avatar. And there's a difference between being out in the real world and then coming into this grey, desolate area and actually trying to have to, you know, remember what it was like in the water. So if you're swimming here, if you're swimming on kind of just a rolling chair, your brain can kind of remember.
We got to rehearse a few of the scenes, and we got to rehearse with physical things because we knew that we were going to be going into a mocap stage and we weren't going to, you know, you don't know how your foot lands in mud if you're just standing on cement. So your body reacts differently to things once you've actually gone out and done those things.
I was shooting them with an HD camera the entire time, just watching how they moved, how they behaved, how the light played on their faces, the light through the trees, if it was sunny, if it was rainy, if it was cloudy. And a lot of that fed my process, you know, on the visual side for how we would light these scenes later. So it was very, very instructive. But I think the biggest part of it that was valuable was just the kind of kinesthetic sense memory that allowed them to create. What did it smell like? What did it feel like? What did the trail feel like under your feet? Come on! So it was about making it real for the actors. It took us from 2005 to 2007 to get the performance capture system up and running and proven to work in a way that neither diluted nor augmented the actors' performance. And so the actors were convinced going in that what they did on the day that they did a scene was definitive, that that's what their CG character would be seen doing later. Told them, you're not doing a voice part, you're acting your character just as you would if there was a camera there. There just isn't a camera. So you have to think of it as CG makeup.
Let's dance.
I was on a quest for the Holy Grail, and the Holy Grail was to be able to reproduce full human emotion in a CG character. And of course, the thing we were afraid of is what people have sometimes called the dead eye effect, describing this strange disconnect that we have sometimes from CG characters. And I knew that Avatar would just fail utterly if we didn't crack this problem. And the idea that I had clung to for a long time was this idea of mounting a camera directly to the actor's head. So we started drawing this up, and Glenn Derry and his little ragtag team of engineers started looking at how do we keep it light. So we wound up with a tight-fitting carbon fiber helmet that was molded to the actor's head.
So we've got this very wide-angle sort of data lens that's here on their face, but we have to be able to see the entire performance of the talent.
So we would shoot reference cameras of the actors. And these are a critical step in the virtual production process.
It's important to understand that the reference cameras and the virtual camera are two completely different things. The virtual camera shows us what the shot will look like with the CG characters and the world combined, because we can't see the fine nuances of the performance in the virtual camera. The reference cameras are absolutely critical for getting exactly the moment that we want. You got 5 takes. They're all going to be good because they're good actors, but there's going to be one take that's special, or maybe special for a moment. We need to know that. That's what the reference cameras are for. And then the animators take the reference footage and they use it to make sure that they're not making a mistake.
Let me know when you're ready, Dave. I'd like to introduce some performers into the volume, please.
I had to take everything I learned in training and apply it to my first day. I had to ride a horse, jump off of him, appearing to be as graceful as possible, land, move like a Na'vi, and from that first moment when they set that horse and they let that thing go, instantly, Sute just jumped in my body and Laz went somewhere else.
What's happening?
You've got to swim pretty quickly, otherwise you're going to drown in there. And Jim makes you comfortable. You dive in, and it doesn't take you long to get rid of all the technical aspects.
I need your help.
You should not be here.
It's liberating. It's just you and the other person. Yeah, they've got dots on their face and a helmet cam and power packs, but you can still see their eyes, and it takes acting back to what it should be, which is trying to get something from the other person and vice versa.
I trusted you.
Trust me now, please.
What I can say is that every day I would go to work the same way I went to work for Star Trek or other movies that I've done before, and there was nothing different about what I was doing. Just the prep work, as opposed to going through hair and makeup. I went through dots, and then all of a sudden I was on the set, and I was playing Neytiri. Jim says action. I don't know what happens. I, at least, have no idea that I'm wearing this. I feel like I'm blue and I'm 9 feet tall, and I'm as sexy as hell. Like, I just totally forget.
Actors have said to me, you know, sort of half jokingly but a little nervously, so what, are you trying to replace actors? And of course the answer is no. We love actors. This whole thing is about acting, and it's about creating these fantasy characters through the process of acting. What we're replacing is 5 hours in the makeup chair, having rubber glued all over your face. So I think the actors found it very collaborative, empowering, freeing. I think it was just plain fun.
It's kind of fun.
There's been a lot of discussion about performance capture and what it means for actors and the impact it'll have. To me, it completely expands what we're capable of doing. And I think digital prosthetics is an interesting way of looking at it.
Grace?
Well, who'd you expect, numbnuts? Ultimately, I felt that it totally expanded what the actor could do. I feel like I could play any age character, any species, anything. I could play an alien now. I think it actually kind of gives us wings.
And action.
We use that sandbox, we use that spatial environment to do everything. It's where we created the sets. It's where we blocked the scenes. It's where we captured the actors. It's where we did all the stunt work. I mean, we had horses galloping around this place. We did everything in the volume. We came up with a number of methodologies for shooting some of these big aerial scenes. We start by, first of all, figuring out what the aerial choreography would be. So we thought, well, if we're going to talk about it, why don't we act it out in the volume? So we made little wire models of the various creatures and aircraft, put markers on them so the system would recognize them, and then we just go out there and fly them around.
Basically chasing each other, like kids playing with two toys. This was a very, very instant way to do it. We could block it very quickly, understand whether or not the overall performance worked before we ever even gave it to an animator and said, now that has to be legitimized.
The performance capture system would record the motion that Jim was getting. Those flight paths were then used to animate the Banshees against, the Samsons against, the Dragon against.
The integration of animation was another headache, you know? In and of itself, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but we had to take it through phases and work out a pipeline. So what we would have is either a puppeteered version where myself and Jim doing flight paths, or we'd have creature performers.
Oh, shut up and fly straight!
We really found that flying the Banshee was the hardest problem. So we created a manually operated gimbal rig that they could balance on, and we'd ask the actors to perform to the timing and movement of the flight path. So if their Banshee banked to the right, the rider had to do the opposite to maintain a center of gravity.
Bang! Level. Flare. Flap. 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 Jump.
And when you see them flying these things, they're working hard. And they used to be just in absolute agony the day after a flight scene.
The biggest set pieces for the stunt department really have been this thing that we call the beanstalk. Jim wanted the actual beanstalk to be created. So these people actually had to climb it as if we were climbing it on a cliff. Climb up there and then get around to the left side. Come on, climb up and then climb right around to the left side right away. And so we put them on wires and we put 2 sandbags, which would take about 40 pounds off the person. They can climb it a little bit faster than they normally would.
You need to build all of these physical cues for the actors and for Jim to work with so that the digital world starts to take on the character of the real world.
Stop!
That's how you wrestle a Banshee.
We would have to build layouts, which were the physical interactive set pieces. So that if you saw the Na'vi climbing a mountain, we had to create, let's say, a 20-degree grade. If they were climbing a vine, we dropped ropes down and you'd see them climbing a vine. So it was all very interactive, yet there was no environment there. There was no jungle.
And we can be very improvisational because we're not bound by the set.
There's nothing on the set. It's a gray set. But the difference is that a big boulder would take an hour and a half with a bulldozer and crew to move it. In our world, it literally takes a second. We select it and move it. And if he says it's too big, we scale it down.
Everything in our environments is modular.
Okay, bring the camera around.
Any plant, any mountain, any exotic alien life form can be completely moved and configured and sized and scaled with a push of a button.
The thing that's amazing about it is that we don't wait for lights. Things that you normally wait for on a film set have been switched over to computers and to digital this and digital that.
If I want to whistle up a tree or a mountain or anything, I can do it very quickly. And there were often times when we'd come in to work a scene on a given day, and we'd get some ideas, and we'd run with that.
He likes actors, which is really helpful, particularly for something like this where you're not seeing the physical set. It's really important to have the kind of director who can lead you and let you know what's happening, and then you can react to that. His detail is spectacular, so he can create the picture for you that you're not seeing.
We would create very rough animation in the virtual production stage for our creatures.
It's a territorial threat display. Do not run, or he'll charge.
So what do I do? Dance with it?
Jim would be there with a pole and going after Sam, and he'd be representing the hammerhead.
We did an animation pass on that just to figure out what we wanted this creature to be. Jim shot Sam doing Jake's reaction.
What about this one? Run, don't run, what?
Jim could play back that animation on stage as if the creature were there, because in his camera, he would see it, so it becomes just another performer.
So if I have a good overlap, then I can play them and get them into their position. Yeah, of course.
So he could direct Sam how to play off of that, because again, in the virtual world, it's all there for him.
Run! Definitely run!
We thought we learned everything in the first year of research and development, because we had done a test and based all of our reasoning on a scene with only 2 people in it. We hadn't done a scene with 10 people or 100 people in it, and those represented more difficulties in virtual production.
If we got past 5 characters, it would create a problem just capturing the motion. Never mind getting them to run with fully fledged sets and lighting. We just hit a ceiling, man. We taxed the hardware to the max, and the software at that point was untested. It was not built for what we were trying to do. So every time we pushed, it crashed.
Got no save. No save. Let's go again, please.
Here's an example of a scene that almost broke the system.
Made of a lot of different elements. You can see there are horses, different performances of the principals and the crowds that were on the side. They were all combined together in one shot.
And we're selecting specific actions and syncing them all up so that they all play relative to whatever's happening. This is like reinventing the wheel. It was really challenging, I have to say. I've never been so challenged on anything.